Assalamu alaikum. You're watching Views and News, and I'm Faisal Rahman live from our Islamabad studios. Today, we'll be talking about two very important topics. The first one is about the DGI ISPR's briefing to the press today, in which he mentioned about the overall security situation and the details regarding Balochistan in particular. And the second is about the Prime Minister's tweets and statements regarding the Balochistan incident. We'll be talking about that in detail. So what the DGISPR, in fact, in his press conference said, he said the last 10 years were a challenging time in every aspect for Pakistan. Despite all these challenges, the state, institutions, the armed forces, intelligence agencies, and most importantly, Pakistani people unitedly faced these challenges. He further stated, whether it was India's designs or hybrid warfare, whether the challenges were internal or external, we not only showed and identified them, but also combated them successfully. The DGISPR said that under Operation Raddul Fasad, 371,000 intelligence-based actions were conducted in the last 3 years alone. If we evaluate the manifestation of success in 2007-8, only 37% of the areas in the tribal areas were under the state control. Today, they have all become part of Khyber Pakhtunkhwa. And he also mentioned that there had been a 35% reduction in major terrorism incidents in 2020 compared to 2019, while terror incidents which had hit an annual peak of 90 in the year 2013 had now fallen to around 30. Law enforcement agencies also averted more than 50% of the terror attacks over the course of the last year. Talking about the Prime Minister and his statements on Balochistan terrorist attack, the Prime Minister Imran Khan said this attack has been claimed by ISIS. The opinion of all of us and our security agencies is that India is backing ISIS. It was the stated aim of Indian Prime Minister Narendra Modi's government to spread unrest in Pakistan. Prime Minister also said time will tell that Modi's government will cause damage to the country more than its enemy. The Prime Minister also said that no talks possible with India until they restore the autonomous status of Indian illegally occupied Jammu and Kashmir. And before I introduce you to our panelists, let's see what the DGISPR, General Iftikhar, had to say.
When we took on this challenge, the swath and enormity of this challenge was decidedly overwhelming. But with Allah's help and the resolute support of our great nation, we took it on. We have taken many hits on the way, but we did not relent, we did not budge. During this whole course, I think we have, in these testing times, we have come a long way as a nation, as a society, and as a military. The challenges that we overcame are now giving way to great opportunities. We are not out of the woods yet. This is something that we have to understand. We're not out of the woods yet, but we're almost there, alhamdulillah.
And regarding the India's designs or hybrid warfare, let's see what the DGISPR had to share.
दहशतगर्दी के खिलाफ कामयाब ऑपरेशंस के नतीजे में सिक्योरिटी की मजमूई सूरत हाल बहुत बेहतर हुई। हिंदुस्तान के मजमू मज़ाइम हों या पाकिस्तान के ख़िलाफ़ हाइब्रिड वॉरफेयर की एप्लीकेशन, ख़तरात अंदरूनी हों या बैरूनी, हमने हमेशा एविडेंस और हक़ाइक़ के ज़रिए उनकी निशानदही भी की और कामयाबी से मुकाबला भी किया, और इस चीज़ को अब दुनिया भी मान रही है। ऑपरेशन रद्दुल फसाद में होल ऑफ नेशन अप्रोच के ज़रिए पूरी दहाई की अचीवमेंट्स को कंसोलिडेट किया गया। इस ऑपरेशन के ज़रिए दहशतगर्दों की सपोर्ट बेस, उनके फैसिलिटेटर्स, अबेटर्स और फाइनेंशर्स और गैर कानूनी असला व बारूद का बड़ी हद तक ख़ात्मा किया गया। अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह आज पाकिस्तान में कोई भी ऑर्गेनाइज्ड टेररिस्ट इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर माजी की निस्बत मौजूद नहीं है.
So last statement was very important, that there is no organized terrorist structure is in Pakistan. Well, but still a lot needs to be done. Now let me introduce you to our panelists we have with us in our studio. On my right is Masood Hassan Saab, expert on foreign affairs. Masood Saab, thank you very much sir, for your time. And we have with us Yasir Janjua Saab, who's a security analyst. Thank you very much Janjua Saab for your time. And we'll also be talking to Amir Rana Saab, who's a senior security analyst, over the telephone. But let me put the first question to you. Let's start off from the DGI's PR statement, sir. A very important statement that the kind of challenges the whole nation went through and the way the I would say valiant soldiers of Pakistan military and security agencies, they fought this hybrid war and these terrorist attacks. I would say, sir, that was a remarkable achievement by the Pakistani armed forces. But yet, having said that, a lot more still needs to be done, because I went through all the details of the press, and we'll definitely talk about that. But let's start off talking about the last 10 years, sir. Obviously 2010 and especially the year 2013 and then onwards, I think the scale of terrorism or these attacks, it has significantly gone down, sir. Let's start off from there.
First of all, I should say that India has never reconciled with the creation of Pakistan from the day first. And its hegemonic designs and expansionist design against Pakistan, they were always exposed by the Pakistani leadership. But this is the first time that especially the European disinformation report has exposed India and its involvement in Pakistan's internal matters. I should go back to 1971. That was the best example which I should give you, that India disintegrated Pakistan through its state terrorism and sponsoring terrorism and funding terrorism in East Pakistan. Later, it never gave up its hegemonic designs, and Pakistan not only highlight Indian terrorism, especially in Pakistan and also in occupied Kashmir, but unfortunately, it was not the weakness of the case of Pakistan, but it was the weakness of civilized world and international community, that they preferred their economic and trade interests with India and did not care too much about Pakistan's concern. But now the time has come that one should listen Pakistan, and India can no longer be milking the cow of terrorism in the region, because all the neighboring countries, not only Pakistan, Sri Lanka, and even in Bangladesh, in Nepal, we can see that India is interfering, and India has evil designs against its neighbors. But as you said, that during last 10 years, I should say that Pakistan is the only country in the world which has successfully defeated the cross-border terrorism in Pakistan. And it is a time that Indian leadership, which is, I'm afraid that under the concept of Hindutva and RSS, which is of course certainly not only leading the apartheid system in India and racism, it is a very dangerous sign, and world must take the notice of it, because both countries are the nuclear countries, and we have already fought almost 4 wars, I should say, if we include the Kargil war. And this mad leadership under Modi can take the situation to a very dreadful end.
Now, Janjua Saab, now according to the European Union's report, almost for 15 years the Indians were propagating, and they were trying to malign Pakistan, and they were like certain NGOs and so many other fake, I would say, institutions where they had a proper plan to, you know, not only malign Pakistan, but to make sure that the reputation of Pakistan, the image of Pakistan, the economy of Pakistan, the image of the armed forces of Pakistan, they in fact went after that. It took us 15 years. I still remember in 2007-8, I did a program with one of the leading security analysts, and he mentioned that at that time, that we should look into that. This is what the future is all about. Obviously, talking about the kind of, I would say, credible deterrent we have in the form of a nuclear bomb, that prevented India from attacking Pakistan. So obviously, the next choice was Afghanistan and the use of the soil of Afghanistan. Now, sir, what exactly do you believe Pakistan need to do in order to make sure that we're not saying that we will be able to stop it, but at least to minimize it? What should be the way forward now?
Okay, thank you, Faisal, for inviting me. But before I answer your question, what I'm going to say will partially answer your question as well. Today in the ISPR's press conference, the DG also mentioned that India first tried all the kinetic means, and when they failed in those kinetic efforts, then they went on to those non-kinetic stuff, like the 5th generation war and the hybrid war. So India has been trying that, and obviously India has been using the Afghan soil, and sometimes, allegedly, sometimes the Iranians as well. But definitely for sure, Afghan soil. Now, what your question is, what should we do? What we've been trying to do is make sure, as we've been saying, and the Prime Minister has been saying, and the Army Chief has been saying, that peace in Afghanistan ensures peace in Pakistan. So at the same time, when we are trying to do things domestically inside Pakistan, we also want to make sure that areas outside Pakistan which can affect Pakistan's security and peace also need to be in peace. And that's why Pakistan has been stressing the importance of withdrawal of American troops from Afghan soil and peace in Afghanistan, a representative Taliban-led government, which is represented by the people, if at all they are. As of now, they control most of the Afghanistan soil. So these are the kind of things we have been trying to do internationally, whereby we are not attacked from outside. Like in this case, we know that India is behind this. Even if they've used ISIS or some local militants, India is behind this. So that's one part of it, that we use international means. We've exposed them, or luckily the European Disinformation Lab has greatly exposed their designs. Internally, Pakistan has raised, this again was mentioned by the DGISPR today, no news that is hidden from the general public. We've raised an extra division inside Balochistan, stationed at Gwadar, Special Security Division, which is only responsible for CPEC and the coastal area security. We've increased the troop strength from one FC in Balochistan. The entire Balochistan previously used to be covered by one headquarter FC, which was based in Quetta. Now there are 2 FCs in Balochistan. So more troops have been pumped in. However, and I keep saying it in my other programs, and I've been saying this, and incidentally, even today the DGISPR said, we cannot be there on every inch of the soil.
Absolutely.
Pakistan Army or the armed
Balochistan is
forces or the law
44%
enforcement
of
agencies,
Pakistan, just imagine.
law enforcement agencies cannot be everywhere.
Correct.
So there's a responsibility, collective responsibility for us as a community, as a nation, to come forward and take the responsibility. For example, in this case of the coal miners, don't you think it was the responsibility of the owner of the coal mine to make sure that his people, his workers, were secure? Probably they didn't do that. Yes, there's a burden of responsibility on the government, but what we are trying to do as armed forces, or the armed forces are trying to do, as much as they can, they've increased their capacity. The 2 divisions that were stationed in Quetta previously, part of the Southern Command, this was said by DGISPR as well. They've been dished out to the rural areas of Balochistan, or what you call interior Balochistan, and not just stationed in Quetta cantonment. And they are doing the security duties, which normally wasn't the responsibility of the armed forces, by the way. Armed forces were responsible for guarding the frontiers and not for the internal security.
Yep.
But just because we want to make sure that India cannot achieve its designs, what India thinks they can achieve, we've made sure, and as he said, we're just about to get out of the woods. We're not out of the woods, but we're just about to get out of the woods, because Pakistan will not let India, this Balochistan, become the East Pakistan of 1971.
This is what they plan to do. I mean, you look
This
at
is what
the agenda of
trying.
Ajit Doval, for that matter.
Billions of dollars they have spent, Ajit Doval's doctrine, you know, and they have explicitly said that we want to break away Balochistan from Pakistan. And we know that Pakistan cannot, will not, and there is no insurgency. The Balochistan is not our fault line, and I say this again and again. This is why we will make sure that India will never achieve its design, and Pakistan Armed Forces and law enforcement agencies are doing whatever is needed to secure. And the numbers speak for themselves. 35% reduction in terrorism from 2019 to 2020. These are tangible numbers. This is not a joke. Obviously, Rome was not built in a day. The things that went wrong, and with the outside intervention, what they are trying to do, this urban warfare is a very, very tricky warfare. You don't really know who's your next door neighbor. Is he a terrorist, or is he a safe person to live next to? So that's why, if we say overnight you wake up and you'll find there is no incident happening, that's not going to happen. It's going to take some time. There are some confidence building measures that armed forces are doing. A lot of people don't know about them. A lot of Baloch youth are now coming into the armed forces. Those who are not well educated, they're going as soldiers. Those who are educated are becoming officers, and they are being given civilian jobs. So people who think that Balochi people can be distracted from the national agenda, they're wrong.
They are very nationalist people, and that's what we believe in. But sir, I've been just joined in by Amir Rana Saab, Senior Security Analyst. Rana Saab, Assalamu Alaikum. Amir Rana Saab, Assalamu Alaikum.
Yeah, Walaikum Assalam. Yeah,
good to have you, Amir Saab. Thank you so much for taking out your time and talking to PTV World. Now, since we are talking about the DGISPR's press briefing and also the incident that took place about a week ago in Balochistan. Now, I want you to comment on that, sir. How do you see today's statement?
Yeah, I think it was quite comprehensive, and it highlighted what the Pakistan so far has achieved in war against terrorism. And it was all, what I may say, it was a very comprehensive briefing. Though it's highlighted a few challenges. The challenges we are still facing on our bordering regions, and we need to be more coherent from state institutions and by the other agencies in Pakistan.
Now, when we say, Rana Saab, that a certain country, which is India, has imposed this hybrid warfare on Pakistan, the fifth generation warfare or the non-kinetic means or the use of soft power for that matter, and whatever happened, if you remember, regarding the disinformation lab of EU, whatever they in fact exposed. Now, it seems that there is a very comprehensive Indian design to destabilize Pakistan. Now, earlier I had put this question that what should be the way forward, looking after the internal threat as well as the external threat. Since you've been writing about it, you've been talking about it, you've been conducting so many seminars, your take on that, Rana Saab, how to sort of move forward and keep the entire nation in a way, just to make sure that the Pakistani people should look up to these issues, and instead of maligning their own army, there are certain individuals or certain political party heads, that's what they're doing. Don't you think this is the time to draw a line?
Yeah, first of all, this is not a new warfare against Pakistan, and this is going on since many decades. And Pakistan has suffered a lot on because of all this propaganda warfare, and specifically during last 2 decades. So it's had basically caused a lot of damage to Pakistan image. But we know that if we want to fight, what we need to do. There's 2 major initiatives, I think, which needed to be taken. First is that we need to have one national dialogue for the national coherence, for the national building in Pakistan. Keep compiling all the external impressions and influences on the country. So this is most important. But unfortunately, what is happening, this is the best time for Pakistan to exploit the Indian weaknesses and what kind of the extremist challenge they are facing, and is eroding their social cohesion and also causing a lot of damage to their state and societal relationships. But Pakistan isn't in position to exploit as at a level as India was exploiting at some time. The reason is obvious. That whenever something happened and Pakistan tried to be highlight what is happening in India, either it's the atrocities in Kashmir and the suppression of the religious minorities. So something happens in Pakistan. So this is, I think, we have to be set our house in order. So this is very important. The one very composite process of the dialogue, engagement with all the segment of the societies. So we should have this impression that we are the nation, that we know our weaknesses, where the gaps are, and we are ready to resolve it through dialogue. Whether this is the extremism or the ethnic issue or is related to our the resources distribution. So this dialogue is important, which is unfortunately we haven't paid very much attention towards it.
Rana Sahib, if you remember during the time of Pakistan People's Party when they were in the government, Rahman Malik was the interior minister, and I still remember he said that he used this word that these are our brothers who are living in other countries and we want them back and to be a part of the mainstream politics. Unfortunately, sir, all these people are either being funded by the RAW or they have been trained, financed, and they have the Indian visas, they have the Indian passports in certain cases. Do you believe that these people should be brought back and and should be made a part of the mainstream political setup in Pakistan, or you believe that certain concrete measures should be taken, and those governments who are sort of giving them some reasons to live there should be told that this is what is happening and this is what these people are up to, and they are criminals and they are killers basically?
Yeah, I think most of the efforts which made to bring them into the mainstream or to initiate the political dialogue in Balochistan, because all the ardent measures has been taken during last more than 1 decade. If you recall what had happened during the early 80s, when the rebel tribesmen who had taken the refuge in Afghanistan after the 1974 operation against the Baloch insurgents. So they were brought back, and it has somehow changed this area in the province. And we have seen at least more than 2 decades of the peace in the province. So in Balochistan is a very, very special case in that context, which all the time need to have the constant of all actors. The reason that there is a variant type of the nationalism exists there. There's the grievances because of all this, the resource distribution or injustice, what happened within Balochistan. So this is the remedy is not only the initiatives taken by the few governments, whatever it's called the Balochistan or the peaceful Balochistan, but all these initiatives fully implemented. This is the major problem. We have a lot of ideas. We all the time talk about reconciliation, the political dialogue, but what practically happening on the ground? Do we really initiate those initiatives? I recall if you may sometime invite the former chief ministers for Balochistan, including Sunanda Zahi or maybe the Malik Sahab, Dr. Malik, they will tell you that how seriously they were pursuing this process of dialogue with all these angry leaders, which we have in Europe or some Arab countries. So they've been, all this process been stopped when it was very near to culmination. So this is all the time it happens. So what we need to just change our mindset, and we have to regard the people of Moroccan as equal the citizen in the country. So this is, I'm saying that whenever we will have to give the message to international community and specifically to our enemies and India, that we are so confident that we can resolve our issues through dialogue, whatever, how much the serious they are, whether this is issue of the uh, subnational movements, nationalist movements in Balochistan, whatever the grievances they have, we can resolve. We can resolve even the issues with the people, the tribal districts of in KP. We can resolve all these are internal issues within to enemies and to the international community. And this is very important for the now.
All right, thank you very much, Rana Saab, for your comments. Now, coming back to you, Masood Saab, now there are a couple of very important areas, and I really want you to throw light on that. And that is about when we say the world powers must take action. And we do understand the kind of influence the Indians have, the Indian diaspora living abroad. They're very influential. I mean, whenever I end up reading any article, you know, I would end up finding that Mr. Ashok, for that matter, is the head or the dean of XYZ University, or Mr. Chopra is another one out there, the White House correspondent is an Indian. So, I mean, they practically control, I believe. So, that kind of an approach, basically, by the Indians has been very, very fruitful for them. Whereas when we talk about the Pakistani diaspora, you know, living abroad, they are busy in their own things. Don't you think this is high time that, you know, the students who are going abroad should be tasked, should be given certain assignments, you know, to expose what the Indians are doing?
I live in Houston for last 30 years, and you have seen that just last year, the Houstonian Pakistanis, they have shown a great interest, and they gathered over 30,000 Pakistanis diaspora. They protested against Modi's visit to United States. Undoubtedly, there are a lot of Indians, I mean, in American universities, institutions, but there are Pakistanis as well, and we have been doing great job to project Pakistani viewpoint, the Kashmiri freedom movement, and time to time, because I've been the president of Pakistan Association of Greater Houston for several years, and we always invite American policymakers, editors of the newspapers, and congressmen and senators, and we highlight the Pakistani viewpoint on Kashmir and about Indian state terrorism in Pakistan. And recently, we have seen a big change that in American media and in print and, of course, electronic media, you can see that there are a lot of programs and a lot of articles are written in New York Times and Washington Post and some other newspapers which are exposing Indians' treatment of Kashmiri people and their racist policies. I'm sure that we, the Pakistanis living abroad, certainly we have responsibilities and we are taking care of back home, and we know that what situation country is facing, and for many years Pakistan has been the eye of the storm, and we are very fortunate in a way that where there are the Indians, there are the Pakistanis. We always counter them, we always expose them, and we have a lot of American friends in universities and everywhere, and inshallah we will continue our services for Pakistan, and truth will prevail, and I'm sure that India is getting exposed everywhere, not only in United States but in European countries
So
as
once
well.
there's going to be a change in regime in United States of America, 20th is not that far, you think things the very basic ground level would change also? Because, you know, when Trump was there, I mean, we looked at that gathering of the Indians when Prime Minister Modi was visiting, and that Howdy Modi concept along with Donald Trump, in fact, gave some sort of an impression that, you know, the Americans, they have gelled themselves with the Indians, and as far as Pakistan is concerned, they have distanced themselves from us.
It is very interesting that when I went for studies to United States at University of Pennsylvania, and I was surprised that what kind of opinion the American friends they have about Pakistan. So later I figured out that, oh, they know India from Taj Mahal. During those days, the Gandhi movie was released, so they know India from that perspective. Then they know from yoga. And when it come to Pakistan's, they were thinking that there were military governments in Pakistan. Pakistan didn't get.
Perhaps everybody was carrying a Kalashnikov with a long
No,
beard and a
during
turban.
those days, the Afghan war was going on. Later on, the Americans, they have changed the opinion, many of them. And right now, it is very surprising, and it is a pleasant factor that many Americans, I should say, that by and large, they have very positive opinion about Pakistan. And luckily, the Pakistani product is now in American markets, you can see over there. And Pakistan is getting good name. And Prime Minister of Pakistan is known as a man of integrity and great respect. So things are getting very positive, and I'm sure that in American policymakers, I mean, definitely it is a big change that the new, the government is coming, and Joe Biden, he few weeks ago during his campaign, he mentioned about Kashmir dispute, and it looks like that there will be some change in the policies, and it may take a little longer, but certainly it will be a part of the
track
American policy.
which we have chosen is the right track now.
Right track, certainly.
Now Jujua Saab, another important area, and that is about the latest military cooperation between the Indians and the Americans, whether you call it about the Indo-Pacific Pact or maybe the BICA, the latest one, and so on and so forth. It is generally believed that the overall policy of the Americans will not be changed. There won't be a major shift in their state policy towards the Indians. But having said that, Kashmir issue could be highlighted, because Joe Biden has just mentioned, Masood Saab, in fact has reiterated multiple times about the Kashmir, especially about the human rights violations going on out there. And that is not the only area, by the way. Now you know exactly what's happening to the Sikh farmers or people living in Assam, Bihar, and so many other areas. Even if you visit Sri Lanka and you end up meeting few Tamils, seriously, they believe that maybe the northwestern India is a totally different world altogether, because they are not in touch with them as such, and they feel neglected too, despite the fact that the education rate is over 90-95% out there. So that kind of a division within India is in fact showing us a lot of fault lines, plus the economic imparity. The ones who are rich are super rich, the ones who are poor are practically eating rats, dead rats, imagine. And you can find a boar, a human, a dog eating from the same dump. I mean, this is the unfortunate part out there, sir. And majority of the people, 70% of them, do not even have a toilet to use. So imagine that kind of in India. And now I've also learned that there is an outbreak of bird flu out there, H5N1. So a lot has been happening, a lot has been going on, but that man is totally focused towards Pakistan. He's so Pakistan-centric. What is he going to achieve?
Faisal, first of all, India-America relations are not going to see a major shift after Donald Trump and arrival of Joe Biden. Because the American policy, the State Department's policy, does not change overnight with the change of the person in the White House. It is consistent. It is a long-term policy. And even if you look at the short-term optics, with Kamala Harris coming in as the Vice President, they are trying to appease the Indian diaspora in the United States and the Indians back home. Look, we've appointed somebody of Indian origin as the Vice President of the United States. First time in the history, a woman Vice President and of color. Let's face a fact and reality. India is our enemy number one, no doubt about it. But we must know our enemy more than anybody else. That's very important. We must not sleep tight because, this is what is happening in India. No. Reality is, India is 1.3 billion people. And Americans will not ignore India. Americans will always prefer in this new world order that we're talking about, Americans will always prefer India over Pakistan, despite the fact that Pakistan is sitting at such a strategically important location in Asia that Americans cannot even ignore Pakistan as well. And you've seen the demonstration of that in case of Afghan peace process. India was not on the table, but Pakistan was, because without Pakistan, the solution cannot be achieved. Americans also know the greater cooperation between Pakistan and China on CPEC and extending from Pakistan, China onto Iran and then to Turkey is a serious dangerous sign for them. So Americans have to see that they do prefer India, but then they can't just completely ignore Pakistan as well. Although Pakistan should see the realignment of its policy, where do we stand, where do we go? And I can talk from the defense perspective. If you ask me, now, if we have a choice, we'd rather not go to the Americans for buying equipment, because we know in the past, when their mood is off, they stop giving things to us. They put sanctions on us.
Sanctions, that's what they do.
Now going over to the internal stuff of India, Modi, this is actually a blessing. And Imran Khan, when he said this thing before the elections, before the Indian elections, people misread his statement, misquoted his statement. What he said is exactly what is being proved today. He said, Modi as the Prime Minister of India actually is good for Pakistan. And that is turning out to be true. Modi is doing more harm to India than Pakistan could do to India. Modi has destroyed their multi-ethnicity or their secularism, what they were so proud of, and made it a Hindu dominant state. Hindutva ideology of BJP and Modi has actually marginalized all the minority communities. You talking about poverty and the divide between the rich and the poor? Yes, that is there. But the fact is, today, the Sikhs for last so many weeks are sitting there on the roads. They're complaining. Although I've been in talk shows with Indians and other people on the talk shows, they still keep saying, no, we are still loyal to India. But in the hearts of hearts, they are saying, what are we doing here?
They've been marginalized.
They have been marginalized. Christians, forget about the Muslims. Christians have been poor. They have been so badly marginalized that they have been forced conversions. And it's a no-brainer, but let me tell you, I'm not a Jyotishi to tell you this, but probably in April or May, you might see the reversal of 370A. 370 will be reversed. India has been so cornered that if they don't do this, forget about the Americans. The Europeans, and I like them for that they stand up for what they mean. They're not as biased as the Americans are. They have condemned
some ethics, some values.
They have condemned India over everything that they've been doing wrong. And this recent information about the European Disinformation Lab is a clear indicator that Europeans will not take a nonsense. And the importance is, and you've seen this, even in this COVID times, India's economy has been going down and down and down, and Pakistani economy has been rising. The textile exports of Pakistan have increased manifold. Similarly, the surgical exports. So Pakistan has been doing pretty well, and the world has seen our resilience because we are now changing. Yes, we might have done things wrongly, but we're improving. On the other hand, Indians are doing all the wrong things. Amassing about 0.8 million troops in Kashmir alone will not make Kashmir more safer. It's actually going to compound the problem, and Indians
this is
don't
exactly what is
realize
happening
that.
out there. Yeah.
So I
People
think
react.
Modi, it's a blessing for us that Modi is taking India down the drain. But that does not mean that we sleep, because India is burning. No, we have to keep our guard high, and that's what we are doing. Because India, you said he's so Pakistan-centric. He has to be. They cannot match up to China. So the only country they can fight against, or India or Modi can win the elections, is based on anti-Pakistan rhetoric.
Yeah, that's true.
So that's what he's doing all the time. He wins the election based on anti-Pakistan rhetoric. And he's been doing that since 1971, where he was actually physically involved in the separatist movement of
Yes,
Bangladesh.
he admitted it himself when he was in the
Yes.
University of Dhaka.
So
yeah.
this kind of maybe saner elements at some stage maybe think like the Americans have also realized. They pushed Donald Trump out of the office after one term. Maybe Indians now also think this is too much.
But sir, Jhunjhunwal Saab, I still remember, I went to India about a few years ago, and there was this back channel diplomacy, and so there were a lot of people, a lot of politicians, a lot of people from the business side, a few journalists as well, writers, people from the social sector, and it was a very interesting gathering. And what I learned out there was that in India, generally when you talk about winning an election, that means that it has to, you just do Pakistan bashing and people would get so motivated. I fail to understand this kind of a philosophy that, if you are the Prime Minister, you're the Prime Minister of India, do something for the Indians. Why, for example, just in 1 year alone, there were more than, last year I'm talking about 2020, more than 3,100 LOC violations. Just imagine. What for? Killing civilians? Their children, the elderly? Is this what is happening today? Even the GSPR mentioned that, we will be making some bunkers for those people so that they can feel safe. What I'm saying is now, sir, when you talk about the Indian aggression, killing these civilians, forget about Kashmir for a moment, sir. The rest of India, but still the kind of votes this man ended up gathering, that wasn't a joke.
See,
that's
there
another
is
reality.
not a single religion, for example, to unite Indians on the platform. In Pakistan, it's different. We're all Muslims. Shia, Sunnis, apart from the fact, but we are all, majority of us are Muslims. So, internal domestic politics cannot be governed by something like that. He has to go and sell something which is a uniting factor for them, and the only uniting factor is Pakistan bashing. That's the only way to get the votes. Because otherwise, he's not even building toilets for them. What is he going to do for them? The Indians are living in abject poverty all over. So, Pakistan is an easy target for him to speak against and get votes. Because then, he doesn't have to spend the money on the people. Actually, he spends money on the people, there will be more money to spend. So he says, why not spend that money on the weapons and maybe try to
giving
build
contracts to Ambanis and all. They're involved in everything. This is what the problem seems to be. Now, it's another important area, and that is about the support of the Indians to the non-state actors inside Afghanistan. And maybe all over, you never know. Maybe in the Middle East also. Now, this man has been supporting, along with Ajit Doval, along with Amit Shah. You talk about anyone and they are there, they are on the same page regarding that. The support to ISIS now, sir, that is something which we are very much concerned of. They have admitted that the terrorism, primarily which is being conducted inside Pakistan, are through these people. And obviously there are offshoots inside Pakistan also maybe. That's why they were able to do whatever they've been doing. Don't you think, sir, this is the time that Pakistan should come up with a very clear point of view? And we have presented so many dossiers to the Americans about what is happening in Balochistan, or for that matter in FATA. Now, FATA is no more FATA, it's a part of KP. What I'm saying is, sir, that high time to go after them.
One thing I should say that many years back, I think after 1999, L.K. Advani visited Houston, and I had an opportunity to attend that meeting.
Lal Kishan Advani.
Yeah. He said that now we will explode Pakistan from inside. He said in a speech. Later, it was confirmed by the statement of Indian Prime Minister's advisor Ajit Doval just a few years back.
Offensive defense.
Many times I read in their newspapers and by their some correspondent that they have assets in Pakistan. Certainly there are some groups in Pakistan, and I think that after the Afghan war, there were so many groups, many of them, I think they have been crushed, but some of them, they are on their payroll and they are utilizing them. But certainly it is a time for us, for Pakistan, because Pakistan is on receiving end, and it is time that we should have a very bold and with proof we have the policy to crush the Indian involvement in Pakistan and all those pockets which they have. I mean, you can say, you name it, the BLA, you can say TTP, there are so many other groups. They cannot survive without the help of some people, and there should not be any mercy for them. And it is time, because the people of Pakistan, they are tired and sick of these people, and we should give a very strong message across the border that we are the brave people, we have a great army, and integrity and the security of Pakistan and our national independence is very important for us, and there will be no any compromise on this issue.
Now, Pakistan needs to have a very pragmatic approach. We've been very reactive rather than being proactive. Don't you think, sir, this is what should be done now? That if they, I mean, why can't we, wage this hybrid warfare on the Indians? I mean,
remember about 4 months ago in September, we did a program together, and I talked about proactive diplomacy. When Imran Khan was supposed to address the United Nations General Assembly, that was around the time when we were in the program in his same studio. This is actually what we have to do, proactive diplomacy. And the dossier that the DG ISPR and the foreign minister showed to the world, and then the information from the EU Disinfo Lab, these are the kind of tools and the weapons that we now have. Now, you were talking about the academics and people, Pakistani diaspora. Unfortunately, I'm sorry to say, some of them go out. A lot of them are very, very patriotic. And I don't want to take some names, but you know all those names that I'm talking about. They badmouth against Pakistan, sitting in those coffers because they are paid and funded by India, because it's easy to talk against Pakistan and get the Indian money. Pakistan should send out the ambassadors, and these academics, these boys and girls, when they go out there, they act as ambassadors. But we must carefully choose who we send out actually. There should be a program who goes on a foreign scholarship or foreign study. They should not start bad-mouthing. They could be very, very effective. As Masood Saab was saying, and I have also studied in the US and the UK, many people did not even know about Pakistan. The positive, the soft image of Pakistan was not known to the people.
because we haven't marketed ourselves well,
Because
sir.
we haven't marketed ourselves. Luckily for us, Imran Khan himself is a very good ambassador of Pakistan. As the Prime Minister, he comes with such a charismatic personality that wherever he is going, he's drawing crowds. But he alone cannot do that. We all have to do that.
There has to
The
be
academics
a
have to do
proper
that.
collective effort, yeah?
So we all should gear up ourselves. So diplomacy should not only be left to the Foreign Office and the Pakistani embassies in different countries. We have a responsibility. Unfortunately, I'll have to mention this. Last week, I was on a program with one of the guys. He was sitting in Singapore, here in the same studio. He was bad-mouthing against Pakistan. It doesn't serve the purpose for the Pakistani nation. Yes, you have to talk about facts. We're not expected here to just do buttering and sugar coating. We talk about the facts, but the fact is, when we are faced with an enemy like India, we have to show the world what India is doing to us. That is our responsibility. And that is what I think we should do as a way forward.
I think sir, a lot needs to be done, and it has to be done on war footing actually, because we are losing time, and I think this is the time to also let them know that, this is what Pakistan is capable of. Whatever you've done so far is in the right way, because at the end of the day, we have to live together. We are neighbors. But anyway, Jindra Saab, was a pleasure having you. Thank you so much, Mr. Saab. And that's all we have for this hour. I'll see you tomorrow, inshallah, at 8. Till then, you take good care. Khuda Hafiz.